Hey everybody, Eric Hayden here on YouTube, waiting for the grill, the charcoal grill to fire up. So I'm gonna use this time to show a follow-up to the Crepe Myrtles and the Encore Azaleas that we planted the other day. Pretty neat project that turned out with our old compost pile. So if you missed it, see the prior video on that. But this will go on to kind of the aftermath, how everything looks. Real quick, want to show you how the garden looks after rain. It always tends to look better. That's a fire pit project that we were working on this past spring. Again, I'm a huge fan of grilling, especially charcoal. It takes a little longer, but you can probably taste the burgers here that we'll be cooking shortly. So, trying to do some other things in the garden. Blueberries come along decently. I noticed that the two in front had a little bit more root structure to them when I planted them. The ones behind it, not as much. So I was a little disappointed they weren't growing much, but now that it's not bearing fruit, the plant is starting to take off. I'm getting a little more growth on it. So I'm looking forward to that. Rest of the garden, we did spray some of these weeds. You can really see some of them are quite tough. They're showing some signs of dying. Other ones look like nothing happened to it at all. So I got to hit it again, whereas other ones are almost completely dead. So some of these are going to need a second spray of weeds. These are some Encore Azaleas that we planted last year. They're slowly taking shape. There's the Dublin Bay climbing rose. The garden from a distance looks tremendous. A lot of blooms. I keep saying I need a deadhead because for all the kind of cruddy looking blooms that are in the garden, I've got a lot of nice blooms. So it's kind of hard just to mess around with it. This is Marilyn Monroe, really nice exhibition form rose. And this one may not hold up in the weather quite as much as a Veteran's Honor, but this is a Mr. Caleb, just a tremendous amount of red blooms on this bush. So it's kind of hard to get started here in the garden, but at some point I have to, and I also have to lower these bushes so that they are lower for the spring so we get some nice long stems on them. That is Louise Estes, and again, this is why I grow hybrid tea roses. They get black spot and they may look like that from time to time, but the blooms are worth it. Does it get much better than that pink, the spiral form? The raindrops on them, really good. Before we get to how good that looks with the Crepe Myrtle and the Encore Azalea, I cannot say enough with regards to having a rain gauge. It's hard to see with all the condensation on this, but this is over another ½ inch of rain. We measured 4.23 inches of rain the other day in a 24-hour period. That was actually the most in the entire country of the rainfall observing network that I'm in, called COCO-RAWS. Tremendous amount of rain. A couple miles down the road, they saw nothing. So I cannot stress this enough. If you're watching this, no matter what type of garden you have, really good idea to get yourself a rain gauge. I've done past videos. They have mechanical rain gauges, automated ones you can read from your house. They do fine in a gentle to light, maybe moderate rain, but when the rain's really hard, the old-fashioned 4-inch gauge where you have to come outside and see how much rain has fallen is much more accurate. And again, it's a nice 4-inch opening as opposed to the test tube rain gauges you get at the big box stores. It's probably better than nothing, but again, these are highly accurate. You might say, hey, I know when it rains hard, I don't need to water, but what happens if it falls at night? And you might be surprised how much rain you get on some of these events. I knew it was pouring the other day, but I was pretty surprised myself to see that it was over 4 total inches of rain. So in our last video, we talked about this old, ugly looking compost pile. Again, I just pretty much threw all our old sod. You have to keep in mind, I've got 7 beds of roses here, and all of them, but the one with the railroad ties, was originally centipede grass. So I had a lot of grass, and the top couple inches of that sod had been some topsoil had been put down, so it was a pretty good soil. That was all thrown over here, in the beginning. So we're talking almost 4 years ago, and then gradually we threw weeds and yard waste such as lettuce, old banana peels, strawberries, stuff like that. So it eventually broke down to this nice, beautiful compost slash topsoil mix. I say topsoil because, again, a lot of the sod still had a lot of soil in the roots themselves. and the top of it just looked ugly if you saw some of our past videos. So what we did is we removed anything that didn't break down, took it to the dump so they can compost it, and then leveled it, mounted it up a little bit so it has good drainage. You can see from the eave of the shed, it's low here and then low on this side. So it's raised. Azaleas don't like to sit in wet conditions. They don't like wet feet. And these are Encore Azaleas. If you haven't checked these out, I'm sure they have them at your local garden shop, especially if you live in zone 6 through 9 where they grow well. The thing with them, they're kind of the knockouts of roses with regards to azaleas. They bloom in the spring like traditional azaleas. They can have a summer bloom. I didn't see much here in our climate because we were so darn hot, but they then also have a fall bloom. So 2 to 3 times a year you'll get azalea blooms, which is a big upgrade over the traditional ones, which were nice, but would only bloom in the spring. So we put those on the edges. Those should be 4 by 4. This can grow up to 10 feet. This is Crepe Myrtle, quite common down here in the south. What's not common is this dark foliage. This is Black Diamond. This one is a certain variety with the darker leaves. Very, very nice. And this is a light pink variety that we're growing with that. The name escapes me. You can comment below. Shell pink. That's what it is, shell pink. So again, traditional crepe myrtle, we're going to grow it like a tree. So eventually in the wintertime, I'm going to remove some of these branches and lower growth so that we have bare branches, and then the top is going to be left as is, so it flowers as a tree, not as a shrub. Big difference with that is that dark foliage. Those are the Black Diamonds. So that's it in the garden. Just wanted to do an update on how things look. Again, things overall are looking pretty good in the garden itself. I want to show you a few last blooms since they're looking pretty good in the rain. This is Headliner. Again, with the raindrops, I like it. And one of my favorite ones, Mr. Lincoln. Very, very fragrant red rose. And Double Delight tends to bloom a little quicker in the bloom cycle and tends to be a little shorter, but it's catching up. That's Double Delight from Palatine Roses on multiflora rootstock, and this is Mr. Lincoln on K&M from K&M Roses down in Mississippi on Fortuniana. So neat to see the difference on how some do, and it doesn't often have great form, Mr. Lincoln, for very long. So I'll show you this one while it does, but man, that's beautiful. And I wish you could smell it because it's one of the more fragrant hybrid teas. Decent disease resistance, again, Mr. Lincoln, and these tall canes. I mean, look at that. You're giving that to your significant other. It looks like that, and it smells tremendous. And again, you can see that the foliage is relatively clean. This is a good judge of disease resistance because other roses are struggling with some black spot because I was slacking on my spraying. But you can see with the Mr. Lincoln, you know, looking pretty darn good in the garden. So that's it, everybody. I hope all are doing well, staying healthy. I'll leave you with this last bloom that caught my eye. One of the taller roses in the garden is Let Freedom Ring. Really, really nice. Have a great day, everybody.